This is the second time I have to record this, so you can see the scribblings of a madman here, but let me take you through a little story. As we are touching more projects, we're seeing that the question, a really burning question is, what should we prioritize and why? And so we've come up with something internally, 2x2 matrix, nice and easy to remember, Impact-Feasibility Matrix, where you're looking for high impact, high feasibility. And I go into what these mean to us, and I'm going to take you on a little story or journey as to it goes. I'm going to start with feasibility because that's actually quite a well-defined one based on resources, internal, external, all this kind of stuff. So really we're looking at technically how expensive is this? And so you can think of it in human, financial, and time. What's the human capital we need? What's the financial capital we need? These are interchangeable. They don't exist without each other. And you've also got the time component as well. If you need the result like now, then it means that it could be less feasible or more feasible. In terms of time, you're thinking like, how long will it take, and will we have enough time to do it, and this kind of thing. Going around again, then we're looking at impact, right? So feasibility, technically, how expensive can we do it? Can we physically do it? Obviously, you can always physically do it, but if you have a capital expense or a human expense that is just too far gone, then probably not feasible. So let's have a look at high impact, low feasibility. You're looking at things over in the top left quadrant. These are a bit more harder to gauge, but they could be worthwhile investigating. So this you could actually look into. This is where we come in, and we come in research for a lot of companies. What is the question of feasible? This is where actually experimentation come in handy a lot, because what you do is it's not MVP, but it's input, output, and then you look at difficulty as well. You can make this picture, this map, where based on the research, the feasibility, actually you can start moving this thing along into this nice green quadrant. As I beautifully circle it here, we have this like gorgeous AI projects. That's the feasibility piece. I don't think there's much more to go in about it. I think it's quite useful to think of things in human and financial and time. Technically, how expensive will it be? And if you don't know, go and research, go and do some experiments, input, output, and difficulty. That will generally build your feasibility image that you've got. Then, in terms of impact, how we think of things as ROI. Typically, we see things in growth and productivity. We typically see that also gut feel is a very good kind of measure of whether something is worthwhile, and we're really focused on R in this, for returns, because we know what the investment is. It's the feasibility over here. But what I've noticed is that growth and productivity, these are more aspirational things. We actually have to break them down into goals, which look like milestones or improvements. And this is where we get into the very classic, I want to do X, I want to increase sales, I want to increase leads, so that I can feed back into growth. And so what we get into here is actually, by knowing this, we can start identifying what the high impact, high feasibility areas are. In the middle ground, you can see here that I've said, probably don't mess around with those now, because you are going to have very obvious high feasibility, high impact areas. So for example, in the sales space, you're talking double the meetings, reduce admin time. These are all really feasible. We're seeing it a lot in the AI SDR space or whatever. And these middle ground pieces, it could be that the impact isn't obvious, or they're not aligned with the goals. And this is why we go into goals, is because something might be really feasible and might have high impact, but the impact might not be aligned with the goals. Taking a step back again, these goals are super, super important, because when it comes to impact, it gives it a new filter or layer that makes it really obvious. And the reason we avoid middle grounds is because we've got opportunity cost. Opportunity cost stops you focusing on the really high impact, high feasible areas. So again, I've said here, what we usually ask people is, we ask you what are your goals, determines ROI, what is valuable, and whether it's any good to go ahead. Now, one thing I'll say about the middle ground as well is to watch out for is taking your time is going to be the best thing to do, because if you can't spend an hour figuring out how to save thousands of hours, then you're going to be you've got the maths wrong, right? Like, you need to spend the time to make sure that you're not doing anything out of fear, anything out of worry, that you're spending that time such that you're confident and your team is confident that this is the right kind of, this is the correct thing to do. And so you can see here that the thing I've run into is when I've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I did this at the start of running Moon Labs, is I would automate anything. I would say, yep, can do it. Whereas actually that's the wrong thing to do. What I should have done was take a breath. This is my nose. And I should have taken my time. So forgive me. Now we do this. Now we sit back and we go, what's the whole point of this? Why are we even talking? Why is this so, why are the goals even important to you? Okay, fair enough. You want to increase sales. Why? And I think it's funny, like before you go in and precisely kind of prescribe fixes, you got to know the whole story. And this is like how we build our whole story for every client that we have. It's just a really sound process of like unpicking whether AI is, you got some questions to answer. Is AI, is AI worth it? Because it's expensive. Like relatively to, other proven kind of systems, it's quite expensive. Team like it. What about the team? You've got things like, will it last? Like this is all in the ever-changing, fast-paced, whatever all those shitty blog posts say. We've got all these really important questions that if we don't do this expansive work on the outside, all of this here, then this is going to become a really big question mark where you're going to be caught in no man's land, and maybe you already have been. I'm not too sure. But hopefully this has given you some insight into how we start making decisions, how we start helping companies. And Impact-Feasibility Matrix, really simply, I'm just going to dust it off one more time. You've got here, impact, feasibility, this is high, this is high, this is low, this is low. And you've got these like little nestled things at the top here, which could just be like reduce sales admin. It could be automate content generation, which is something we're looking into right now and doing for clients. Automate content generation. And these are all aligned to the goals of growth or the aspiration to grow. And yeah, so I think that this is going to be really useful if you're thinking about how do I get started? Right, we've got some ideas. How do we prioritize them? I think this is just a really good framework to use. So yeah, hopefully it's really kind of interesting. I hope it helps.